Joining me to discuss the US currency, the dollar, is Ilian Yotov FX Strategist at All Things Forex. Hello, Ilian. Following monetary stimulus issued by the Fed, do you see the US dollar strengthening or weakening in the longer term?
Well, we already know that the Fed is committed now to an open-ended quantitative easing, and at least at this point we don't have to gauge whether there's going to be QE number 4 or 5 or 6 and so forth and so on. I think that now that we know that the Fed is going to do this open-ended quantitative easing, it's all going to come down to underlying fundamentals and economic backdrop for the United States and the rest of the world when we try to gauge the appropriate exchange rate for a lot of the major currencies. And I think that ultimately the U.S. dollar could benefit in the longer term from if, of course, the U.S. economy shows resilience in the face of the global economic slowdown. I think in particular when we compare conditions in the United States and the Eurozone, although we definitely here in the U.S. do not have an impressive growth, as many of you know, we only had 1.3% growth in the second quarter. But if we get to see the Eurozone in a double-dip recession, at least, it's going to be a great opportunity to compare that. At least at this point, the U.S. is doing a little bit better than the Eurozone. And ultimately, I see the U.S. dollar strengthening in the longer term if the U.S. economy continues to show signs of resilience while other economies continue to struggle, such as the ones in the Eurozone.
What are the main issues affecting the performance of the dollar right now?
I think that we're having the same old risk on and off type of trends that are emerging. I think that we are having a lot of that quantitative easing by the Fed obviously is not helping the U.S. dollar a whole lot. And the fiscal cliff, which is supposedly coming up, I don't think that that's going to be that major of an issue. I think that it's going to be avoided, the threat of that. But all of these factors are weighing on the dollar, and I think that they will continue to weigh on the dollar until we start seeing, as I mentioned earlier, some sort of very stark differences in the data, economic data. Because, as I mentioned also earlier, it's all now going to boil down to economic fundamentals.
Apparently, the dollar may strengthen more than 5% against the yen after the currency exceeded its 200-day moving average. What are your thoughts on this?
As many of you have witnessed, we have now seen a breakout, which is a bullish technical development, without a doubt, for the dollar against the Japanese yen. As a matter of fact, the dollar is testing the 80 yen level, which is an important price level in my quarters theory. It is a dividing line between two 1,000 pip ranges, the 70s and the 80s. And anyone who's familiar with my quarters theory know the significant importance of this price level, which some traders also call a psychological level. But we have to remember that despite of the fact that the dollar is breaking higher, which obviously opens the door for more gains, provided, however, that there are breakouts above other important resistance levels. And the dollar-yen currency pair has been simply trading in a range since May of this year. And the range is roughly a little bit over 300 pips. It's between 77.12 yen, which is the low that was reached on September the 13th. And the top of the range is actually a triple top resistance, and it's at 80.60 yen. So a little bit over, or 80.61, a little bit over 80 yen. And this is the area that we're now approaching. So the bullish breakout above the 200-day moving average is a bullish technical development, but the only way that the dollar is going to gain further versus the Japanese yen is if it breaks outside of this range, if it breaks the triple top resistance around 80.60 yen. If it doesn't, then obviously the dollar could continue to fluctuate within this range and could easily fall back to the bottom of it, 78, lower 77s. What I also want to mention is that one should also pay very close attention to what happens next week with the Bank of Japan's announcement, because the dollar has been strengthening versus the Japanese yen on expectations that the Bank of Japan is going to weaken the Japanese yen further by offering another round of quantitative easing, another expansion in their asset purchase program.
And how do you think uncertainty of whether Spain will ask for a bailout will affect the US dollar?
I think that this boils down to risk on and risk off. Example this morning, the dollar is strengthening on the news that Moody's has cut the credit ratings of 5 Spanish regions, and obviously if Spain continues to be in absolutely no hurry to ask for a bailout, I think that this could continue to weigh on the euro, and ultimately we can see the euro heading back to the bottom of its existing range, because the euro-dollar pair has been also somewhat confined within a range between recent highs, which were at $31.70, and the bottom of the range now being around $1.28. This is where the euro-dollar exchange rate's been fluctuating within since last month. So we have almost a full month. Well, actually, it's not almost. It's over a month now that the euro-dollar pair has been fluctuating there. So Spain is definitely going to be a factor. We can add that to the previous question that you asked me, what are the main issues affecting the performance of the dollar right now. Of course, the European debt crisis, if we see some sort of escalation of the crisis, we are going to see some risk aversion hitting the market, and ultimately the dollar could benefit from that.
Thanks for joining me, Ilian. Well, that's all we've got time for right now, but stay tuned to Dukascopy TV for more updates and interviews. For now, though, goodbye.